Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Carrie Ann. On this channel, I share my love for dolls and books and literary characters. And yeah, today I'm going to be sharing, I kind of hemmed and hawed on whether I was going to share this creation of mine or not, because I'm not quite sure how I feel about her. She could use a couple revisions, but I think since my previous video was about if I could create my dream doll line, I shared kind of my vision for that, and the video did got much more attention than I thought it would. So that was a bit nerve-wracking, but I did mention in that video kind of my interest and delving into fiber dolls, like hand-making dolls, since it's not easy to just cast your own vinyl dolls at home. So yeah, I'm just going to share a bit about the story of this doll that I made, and I'm going to share her with you. And yeah, curious to hear your thoughts, kind thoughts, hopefully. So yeah, I was wanting to have another go at making a fiber doll because my budget for buying new dolls was like starting to hurt. And I had, all these materials. I did a bit of experimenting and working around and ended up just kind of wasting money in the end, which was a bit frustrating. But if you're unfamiliar with Waldorf or fiber art doll making, a very common material used for making the skin of the dolls is cotton jersey fabric. So think of any like plain kind of t-shirt material, and that is in essence cotton jersey, but there's a very specifically kind of manufactured cotton jersey that is the creme de la creme when it comes to making the fiber art dolls in terms of its kind of density and stretch and all these types of things, which costs, as I mentioned, like $20, $30, $20 for half a yard, something ridiculous. So I went through this experimental phase of I could buy a whole meter's worth of a white cotton jersey at my local fabric store that was pretty thick and of decent quality for about $10 a yard, $9.99 a yard, $9.99 a meter or something. So I was like, well, if I can just buy that, and then if I can dye it and use that, then I've just worked around this like super expensive fabric. And I went through all these like trial batches, like trying to pick the color and dye the fabric and get it to be a skin type color. And in the end, I would say that I got a decent skin resembling color. It's kind of hard like to get it not too peachy, but not just too tan or not too pink. Like it's skin color is so unique. I find very hard to replicate. But then I would go and I would test out the pattern, and after the fabric had been, because in order to dye it, it's gotten wet and then you have to wash it and dry it, and then by the time it's kind of gone through that process, the jersey was prone to stretching and not re-shrinking. So when you're making a doll, you're stuffing the fabric. And so I would cut the pattern and then I'd stuff it. And then all of a sudden the foot goes from being like this big to elongating to being, a totally different size because the fabric is stretched and it won't go back. And this is probably why it's like $40 a yard fabric that is commonly used to make the dolls, but I just wasn't willing to pay that quite yet. So I ended up spending, I probably should have just bought the real fabric. But if I probably would have just bought the fabric and saved myself the headache, I ended up probably spending, because I did like 2 different batches of fabric because I dyed one, it wasn't right. Then I dyed another batch, and then between also like buying some fabric dyes, I ended up probably spending the $40, and I probably should have just bought the fabric. All that to say that I tried that, and then I ended up going with this material that I had just picked up at the thrift store one day, because it had that bit of stretch to it. It was a very nice kind of flesh tony color, and so I just picked it up one day, like way earlier in the year. And the pattern I used for the doll, I have previously taken and purchased and used as a resource the Darling Waldorf doll making course for the Brie doll, but she's a 15-inch doll. So and I was wanting to scale up to an 18-inch doll so that I could just use clothing patterns that I use to make any of my other doll clothes. The same for this doll. I didn't like having kind of the different scale, and I would just never make that kind of 15-inch size clothes because then the clothes would all be interchangeable because they'd be the same size. So what I did was I took the pattern from that doll, and then I kind of measured an American Girl doll and scaled up the pattern as best as I could, and then I cut it out and I sewed it, cut it, sewed it, stuffed it, and saw if it actually scaled up properly. But then yes, I was running into issues where I'd have it kind of at the right size, but if I used that cotton jersey that I tried, it would stretch and then it would not be the right size. So then I was like, you know what, I have this fabric, I'm just gonna try using this fabric. And I cut it and I stuffed it, and I was really quite pleased with how it, stuffed looked. So I just decided to kind of go ahead and do that. I also made a couple alterations to the pattern. The pattern and construction of this Brie doll had a button jointed arm sockets so that the arms could move, but I decided to alter the pattern at the hips, like leg joints, so that they also could be button joint attached, so that they, I don't know, just had a bit more perhaps natural movement. I don't know. I really just kind of wanted that kind of jointiness. There's like something I really like about the floppy ragdoll quality. When you like pick up a doll and it's when it's a soft doll and the limbs, like they fall. There's something I really like about that. I don't know why, and that's such a different experience with the vinyl dolls unless you have a loosely stringed one. They're just stiff, and you pick them up, they're just stiff, and it's great for posing them and stuff, but that kind of soft, natural feeling is not there. So, okay. And then because I shared in my other video that my goal or theme was kind of fairy tale inspired dolls, that a doll that I was wanting to make was Snow White. So as I was making this doll, like I had originally had a thought of, I would like to do a custom, like could I find an American Girl doll to turn into Snow White? Because I really, I have mixed feelings about the Goods Snow White doll. They have one that they made, I think the late 80s-ish, that I had considered buying at one time, but I yeah, I just wanted to kind of challenge myself to make my own Snow White inspired doll. So I'm hoping, maybe I should have shown her and then let you guess, see if I did a good enough job tying the visuals. I'm not too sure. But okay, so yeah, the body is constructed the one way, and then the head is a sculpted, wool felted head, and then like the skin is applied. I tried a different technique to have a more human looking nose shape on the doll versus in the other pattern it's just kind of like a nub, and yeah, the head, and then the head gets attached to the body. And I would say this doll was kind of put on standstill. I kind of had her whole body assembled, her head, like I had her body assembled, and I had some parts of her face then like embroidered, but she was just like this blank standstill doll for, I don't know, well over a month. I kind of was working on this in November, and then December is kind of right off because of the holidays. And then the reason she was on standstill was because the hair. I was undecided on what direction to make or do her hair. Okay, because doll wigs. There's so many things you have to learn. Purchasing doll wigs can be pricey. Not necessarily, like the wig might be a reasonable price, but it's always the stupid shipping. Shipping is so expensive. So I was considering, because on the other Waldorf doll I made, I used yarn for the hair. So I was considering like yarn. I literally even had thrifted a black wig, like human-sized wig. It was Halloween time. That's a great time if you're looking for hair for your dolls. I thrifted this black wig and I literally spent an evening rip stitching the wefts of hair from this wig, and my idea was that, oh, I'll make a wig cap, I'll crochet a wig cap, and then I'll stitch the hair in. And like, I'm sure if I had all the time in the world and I didn't have a little child to take care of, then maybe I would have actually accomplished that. But it just wasn't really lining up. And then I kid you not, I had this moment where at our Salvation Army thrift store, there's an elevator, and I usually take the elevator if I'm pushing my daughter in a stroller or the cart or something. So, and to go to the bottom floor is where all the home goods, homewares, crafting, all that kind of stuff is. Clothes are on the first floor. So we're in the elevator, we go down the elevator, the doors open, and there's this shelf that's like right outside of the elevator. And that's typically where they always have porcelain dolls. But on this particular day, the doors open and I just see this lineup of doll wigs. I kid you not, I've never seen doll wigs out in the wild, but there's just these 2 shelves full of Monique monocrylic doll wigs. And I was just like, what? And then I'm looking through the wigs, and then I kid you not, I find the perfect black hair wig in the right size for $5. And I was like, thank you for providing this thing that I needed, because once I had that, then I actually felt like I could then finish the doll, if that makes sense. Okay, so after all that, I'm gonna pull her into view so that, because probably you're tired of looking at me. So, oh, bad angle. She's not perfect. Like, she's not perfect. But here is my Snow White inspired fabric doll. Oh, her face looks a little funny. It's so hard with the needle felting to know if you're getting an even shape. I don't know, because it'll look even, and then you go and you put the skin on and it doesn't look even. But I know that I did not embroider her lips evenly, so I know that is one of those things where I'm like, I could redo it, but I don't want to redo it now. But this is that wig I'm talking about. Like, it was this just really perfect pitch black hair, black as ebony, snow white wig. She's got her lips red as blood, her skin pretty white as snow, not quite white, but and then her feet, the parts that I also wanted was that, like, the pattern of these dolls is that they could fit like 18-inch shoes. I wanted it to be as like cross accessible as possible, like that the shoes could work and the clothes could work. So, because yeah, that's what I have, so I'd want it to be accessible. But a different technique I tried with this one was painting on the eyes. On my other Waldorf doll, they're just like a solid, like, embroidered. But I wanted to try a painted eye style, and I think I like it. Her cheeks, her head is definitely, it's interesting. But I made for her this white linen blouse top, and I don't know, I know people associate her a lot with the blue from the Disney films and stuff, which is part of why I wanted to give her blue eyes. But I had this really it's got this nice, really rich type sheen to it, but it's just like a cotton fabric that I got in a thrift store bag of kind of miscellaneous fabrics, and it just, I don't know, it just felt right for this folkloric kind of tale. She's admittedly borrowing bloomers from my girl Dorothy. I'll show you an example of, I'll show you what I was talking about with her hips, though. That her hips are, sorry, what a bad angle. That her hips are jointed like this, so that she's extremely flexible, because like I mentioned in my dream doll, that I really don't like how difficult it is for the vinyl jointed dolls to sit down nicely. The soft-bodied vinyls, where their limbs, their joints are also soft, sit much nicer. My Engel puppins are like that, and I display them sitting because they actually can sit very nicely. But thanks her hair. I don't have the wig technically stitched down on her, so it kind of moves around sometimes. But yeah, so like around her eyes embroidered, her eyebrows are embroidered, her lips are embroidered. But then this is also like, I was trying to give her more of a human nose. Her skin, it's difficult because you put the skin over, and even with my other doll, and then you're supposed to like glue it down. You glue it down to keep it firm against the wool. But I find getting the fabric that goes under the chin and onto the neck very difficult to get smooth. So she's got these kind of, I don't know, ridges on her neck. But I really like her outfit. I like her outfit. Some details I would love is obviously like a basket full of apples to reference the tail, and Maybe it'd be nice to design like a cloak for her, for when she's out walking in the woods. Both, you know, the films always have her in a nice cloak, which would be really pretty. I don't know. Yeah, so until I can find someone to manufacture me dolls, I might just make my fairy tale characters myself. Yeah, I managed to snag a couple other, I bought this wig and 2 others from that thrift store extravaganza. And so yeah, I have a couple more at my disposal to use. Hello. My name is Snow White. Sorry. Yeah, a basket, a broom, you know, for her helping clean up the, no, just kidding. A bed. She'd need the nice, you know, her coffin, her glass coffin. There's so many things you could create as part of her collection. The glass coffin, some woodland creatures, some snowdrops. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my little story time, maker's story time, on how I kind of made this interesting looking doll. I don't know. She looks weirder on camera than she does in person, if that makes any sense. But